USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
You're listening to Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson, and guess what? It's Thursday. That means it's Dr. Emma and me. Welcome, Emma.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so excited. You know I love Thursday episodes because I get to share them with you, and today we get to share this episode with somebody else. We got Dr. Peter Stiffell here today. Welcome.
Hello, ladies. It's a pleasure as always.
I am so excited for this episode. But before we get into it and talk about what this episode is about, we have to do a quick little pitch for our Catherine of Aragon course that we have coming up with Dr. Emma. Emma, do you want to tell people why they need to join this course?
Well, I'm working very hard, guys, first of all, so come on. No, it's going through the sources again, the visual sources, just really realizing that this course is going to be very cool because it's going to have a lot of art history involved. What that means, it's going to be very visual. It's going to be very visual, and I'm going to take you through a journey around the Iberian Peninsula, really, with little Catherine of Aragon. How cool is that? From her birth in Alcalá de Henares in December of 1485, just months after Henry VII really became Henry VII, to the shores of Laredo, not very far away from where I am right now, to go on to live in England for the rest of her life. So it's going to be very exciting because we're going to go with her mom, with her sisters, with her dad, and her brother. She had a brother, and all the people that were going with them. The Trastámara court was an itinerary court, so that means this course is going to be very heavy on things like architecture in Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, and beyond, really, because the Spanish court becomes, and the Spanish territories, the union of Isabel and Fernando really is the birth of Spain, not just the birth of Spain, but the birth of the Spanish Empire, because we all know what happened in 1492 when Columbus reached America. So it's, what else can I tell you about the course? It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to invite Peter to come and join us if he can, some lectures. I just put him on the spot right now. Sorry, Peter.
No, that's fine. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. And if you're excited, you want to learn more information, get some details about the course, head to the show notes. There will be a link there for you to learn more. So now that we got that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about our topic for today, for parallel lives, because I feel like this is another one that I would not have chosen myself, because when we did Elizabeth and Mary the First, I thought, well, duh, obviously they have parallel lives. They're sisters, right?
Right.
This one is another one where I guess I would not have. I can see Emma's face. She's looking at me like, are you going to say this is a dumb one now?
No, I'm just going to say that you keep saying, oh, this is so surprising. Please, you have to believe in your co-host's capacity to come up with parallel lives, because, it's not all about what you think is going to happen sometimes. It's nice to be surprised. I think Rebecca was surprised with my choice. Not a guest, because Peter's been on the podcast for many times, and he's like, so I safe to say that we're going to talk about Mary the First, right? If Peter's here.
Yeah, obviously.
Who pair her with?
Yeah, who would you pair Mary the First with? It's weird because I know the answer, but I'm pretending like I don't.
Yes, no, I think Peter can tell us because I don't know if you were surprised when we proposed to invite you to the show to talk about parallel lives. Not surprised at the invitation, but the topic.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes complete sense. And I think it's the first time we've done a pairing like this. I think. So, yes. So today we're talking about the wonderful newlyweds, Mary and Philip.
Yay!
Hey!
Yes, Mary and Philip. So Mary and Philip of Spain, of England, of many places, right? Because I think people don't realize how powerful these two became when they were married.
No, they really don't. You know, they were called the new Isabel and Fernando, the new Catholic kings. You know, they ruled what, half of Europe.
Wow.
Hey.
And the empire, the growing empire in America too, because by this time, this is where it gets exciting for me because I get to expand my horizons a bit further because we're talking about vast territories now. Philip would go on to have an empire that people said that the sun would never set in his empire. But first, before that, someone taught him to be king, and that was Mary the First of England, right, Peter? Don't you agree?
It sure was. You know, he must have had some sort of inspiration or guidance from her. I mean, he never credited her, obviously, because that's just Philip. But, you know, he must have learnt from what, you know, how she was a queen of England. And then he probably did take on some of her teachings for when he was king of Spain and, you know, when he went back to Europe, you know, and it's one of those things that, again, someone uses Mary as a guidance, but doesn't credit her. But you know, that's everyone. Seems to everyone uses Mary.
Underrated.
Exactly. Well, not for long. And the changes started. Well, it started, in all fairness, I have to talk about someone who's not here today. Professor Alexander Sampson has done a lot of work on the marriage of Philip and Mary for many, many years. So shout out to him for all his work on that. But really, other than Professor Sampson and now Peter with his PhD on Mary, where he's analyzed things like the coinage and things that, you know, in tandem, it's not a couple that has been analyzed a lot. There's a lot of, we don't have a lot of information. Well, we do have Gonzalo Velasco Berenguer's book on Philip as King of England, but them as a power couple like Isabel and Fernando, not very much. So that's very interesting that you did that from a visual point of view in the case of her imagery. So I think that was my inspiration. I've done some work too on, for example, the patronage of women artists, really, that Philip does when he goes back to Spain is most likely inspired by what he sees in the English court with Lavina Turnley, right? So that's the connection with the previous episode that we talked about Susanna Hornboot and Lavina Turnley in a way. How, you know, having conversations with Spanish scholars, this is how I came to this idea that, you know, Philip must have been influenced by Mary, because in England you don't hear that a lot, right?
No, I mean, no, you know, Philip's always the bad guy. We don't talk about Philip. I mean, obviously, you know, like you said, it is changing. Whether or not we'll ever call him Philip the First is another matter. But, you know, I mean, I think the trouble is, all of the, you know, Philip burnt all of his private correspondence with Mary. So we don't actually know their relationship really, because, you know, I mean, he did it with all of his wives.
Ooh, what was in there? Now I want to know.
You know.
Okay, this one needs to go.
Right.
Yeah, you know,
too spicy.
He burnt everything, and then everything else that we could have used is at the bottom of the English Channel. So, you know, we need to get a scuba diving team, go see what's under there.
Yes. Well, there's some stuff in Simancas that surely, I think there needs to be more collaborative work between Spanish scholars and scholars in England, because we can't all read English to perfection and Spanish to perfection and do all the work or read the sources and then analyze the visual sources, because a lot of what Peter and I do is analyze visual sources too. So you have to read the the documents, but you have to go back to the sources and go crazy because iconography and things like that will make you go crazy sometimes. Right? You start to see patterns everywhere, right?
Oh, don't. Yeah, overanalyzing everything.
Yeah. Thinking about pomegranates all day, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you
Right.
see one, that's it. You see them everywhere now. Everywhere I
Yes,
go,
yes. I see them in my
there's a
dreams.
pomegranate.
Be careful with that. That's how I started. No, it's true, but I think we need Philip is I think one of the things that unites them is they are both at the core of the Black legend, of the Spanish Black legends.
I don't
Both of
know.
them.
I don't know about this Black legend.
Well, no, you don't. Let me tell you about it.
I thought the Americans love all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yes. Well, we all contribute to the Black legends of other places, right? Because especially when two empires are competing, like the Spanish Empire and the British Empire were competing, or the Dutch were there too. There was a lot of confrontation between Catholics and Protestants, and a lot of propaganda that was created in England, in the Netherlands, where they had powerful propaganda production places, especially in places like Flanders. We've talked about this. After Mary dies, there's a very big push to criticize her reign, both in England with the reign of her sister, but also internationally as the Counter-Reformation advances and Philip becomes an icon too. Philip II of Spain is an icon of the fight to try to stop the Reformation, called the Counter-Reformation. More studied, obviously, in the universities in the south of Europe.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
North of Europe.
Unfortunately so, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a fascinating
And I had to
period,
study
really.
about that, a lot in my master's program about Spanish Empire, really. It's at the core of really the competition between the Hispanic world, really, and the English-speaking world that derives in the fact that the Black legend is tied also to the United States, and so
Yeah.
hey,
Should we say what the Black legend really is?
yes, please explain that.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it's basically Catholics, evil people. They should be, they should all be burnt. Philip and Mary are seen as, Jezebel and, just villainous people. They're always dressed in black and they're cruel. And I mean, the best way to describe it is everyone who's seen the Elizabeth film with Kate Blanchett. Everyone, if you look at Mary and Philip in both those films, they're the bad guys. They're always in black. They're always, in darkness and just candles lit around them. So that's in a whole. That's what the Black legend is. And it's only recently that we've finally managed to hopefully move away from that, because as we all know, Alexander, as you said, has done a fantastic work on this, and Gonzalo. It's all rubbish. As with most of these things, Mary and Philip were actually quite good rulers when it actually comes to, the contemporaries. I mean, we may not agree with all of their policies and, how they did it, but, I mean, everyone did it. So, you can't judge one for doing one thing just because they're Catholic and, but it's fine for Elizabeth and Henry VIII and, whoever, Wilhelm or Orange, to do all those things. Oh, that's fine, but we can't have the Catholics doing it. So it's luckily we've sort of moved on from that now. So it's now just trying to carry on in that direction.
Yeah. The narrative around. I was just going to say the narrative around Mary for sure has changed. Philip, I guess I don't know enough about Philip and the history that's been told of him, but I definitely feel like the narrative surrounding Mary and who she was as a person has changed in the last few years for sure.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah.
in part to you.
Yeah, I mean, even in my short time of doing all this, I remember at school we always talked about, and I went to a Catholic school, and we were still taught Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And, luckily, we've now moved on from that. We have an academia, still need to work on the popular history, but, small steps. One day we'll get there. I think the trouble is, because it's such a good story, all these popular institutions don't want to lose that story. Because if you start saying, oh, it's Elizabeth first and Mary the first, tourists aren't into that. They want to know, oh, Bloody Mary, tell us all about Bloody Mary, and tell us about Gloriana, that sort of thing. So it's like, well, hang on. They're both Gloriana, really, but we can't both have two powerful women. One's got to be a bad guy, one's got to be a good guy.
Yes.
So we just need a nice, good Mary film. I've already got a picture in my head. Mary and Jane Grey, let's do it.
Wow, I love it.
Well,
Mary the good guy, Jane Grey is the bad guy. Well, Northumberland as the bad guy, but
Yeah.
Well, I want to pick up something that Rebecca said, who has had a podcast about Tudors for a long, long time, yet she doesn't know anything about Philip, who was King of England during the Tudor times. This is how bad it is. Sorry, Rebecca, I had to put you there. Sorry, I don't know anything about this king. Wow. So, so this is how bad it is, really. I remember speaking about this at a place where I put an example when Royal Mail, they issued some stamps for the monarchs of England. They never even printed one of Philip, but he was King of England.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if he's on the ruler or not. I'll have to have a look. But we don't acknowledge him as King of England. There was this time when they used to call him King Consort, but King Consort's that's not a title. That doesn't exist.
Yes, anyone who wants to know about that should read Gonzalo's book, right?
Yes, really, fantastic book.
Yeah, so that's it's technical, right? There's technicalities. He's a bit, to make a parallel lives. He's a bit like Crybaby, aka
I love it.
Philip the First of Castile, or Philip the Handsome, or Philip the Fair, or Crybaby, right? You know what we're talking about, because he was crying like a little baby in the boat, right?
That's right.
Yeah. He was that same figure in Castile. So he has a lot of conflicts because he wants more power, and Fernando, who has been left as the let's say the keeper of the realm, while Juana, because Juana is like, let's see what happens with her. He has a conflict with him and with Juana too, because Juana's no, I'm the queen. I inherited this from my mom. In the medieval times, sometimes husbands had claimed through marriage the right to rule, like John of Gaunt had done in the 100-Year War. That this is a different time now, because Isabel has ruled with Fernando, not alone. Okay. That's why Elizabeth doesn't marry, I think, in many ways and respects. It's her way of saying, I will lose my power if I marry a guy, because he will have power. But he didn't have all the power. My argument that Philip didn't have all the power as King of England, for example, plug here, Faces for Eternity, the exhibition that Peter came with me to see. Thank you, Peter, for coming to the opening with me.
Thank you.
Yes, it was amazing to have you there to share that moment with Peter. It was very emotional. I know how much he likes medals and coins too, is one of his favorite things too. So it was very special to be there with him. You look at the coins, medals of Philip and Mary, and she has a numeral and he doesn't. So there's difference. He's not a full king, and just speaking quick. but he is a king, right? But he's not a king consort because it's not the same figure as a queen consort, right?
No.
He has power.
It
Queen
doesn't
consort
exist.
depends. Yeah, it's complex, but it's really simple when you think in terms of, we don't call it queen consort because then we are making it equal as queen consort, and that's not the case. He has a lot more power than a queen consort, okay? But he's not a full king because when Mary dies, Philip has to leave, right? He can't just stay in England and continue being king. So that's the way to explain that, right?
I have so many questions.
Go on.
I'm just thinking about this king consort, queen consort thing. But when it came to Mary the First and Philip II, this was the first time we had a queen regnant who married. And so I guess my mind is going in so many different directions right now as far as what it meant to be married to a queen regnant, how Mary was the first one to set the stage for any subsequent queen regnants, right?
Yeah, I mean, her and Philip, I mean, no one would ever admit this, but they set the stage for Mary II and William III. It was the same idea. Obviously, it was a little bit different because they're both Protestant, and they were fine with the whole dual monarchy thing. But we had the precedent, so it's like, okay, well, we know kings and queens. They both had equal power. As from that seal I showed a few weeks ago, they both had independence. So, and they both learned from their predecessors, even though they never admitted it. And I think there were conversations at the time saying, the last time we had a Queen Mary, it was with a dual monarch as well. So it was, it's quite a weird coincidence, really, that both of our Queen Marys were married to kings.
I love that.
And the thing I like to point out too is Mary gave the power to Philip. It wasn't the other way around.
No.
And and Peter knows a lot more about this, so I'm going to try not to make a mistake. But you do, Peter, just tell me. But he wasn't granted everything he wanted. He would have taken everything, obviously, because that's the way the kind of mentality. Think about Fernando too. Fernando has a power struggle with Isabel. When Isabel becomes Queen of Castile, Fernando's like, wait for me, because I need to be the one to hold the sword of justice because I'm the king. And she was like, sorry, we did it anyway. You're not here. So I just, I held it. It's not that heavy, Fernando. You'll be fine. And they have an agreement, like Concordia de Segovia, to agree what are Fernando's powers in Castile.
Yeah.
So she's given him the power, right?
Yeah.
That means it's she really is giving up some of her power in order to have stability, really, because the man is the one who has to go and fight the wars. We're still at a time where the kingdoms have to be defended, where you can be invaded at any time. We know 1513, Henry VIII wasn't there. His wife took care of stuff, but it's always a threat. And then the most important thing for a queen regnant is to have kids to be able to continue the lineage, right? So I think what Mary and Philip are really committed to do is emulating Isabel and Fernando.
Definitely. I mean, it's in the marriage contract. It's quite clear. Mary's in charge. Philip will have. I mean, it's more ceremonial roles, really. Yes, he's going to be head of the Garter, the Order of Garter, because he's a man. Of course, he's going to. But he doesn't have his. So in St. George's Chapel, where all of this takes place, he doesn't have his own seats or his own stall. It's Mary's stall. So, he doesn't have real independence. It's all through Mary. So Mary's placed there, and he can sit on her stall because obviously she can't sit there because she's a woman. And the Order of the Bath, sort of, he can take on the military side and the ceremonial side because that's one, Mary probably doesn't want to do it, and two, it's be a bit awkward having a woman dealing with naked men or something, like that, all that chivalry sort of thing.
Well, I mean, I'd be okay with
it might help a few things, but
which naked men are we talking about?
Yes,
I'm staying out of
this.
Just
a joke, but you're
right.
Right. It's
wait. Did he have a beard?
Hey, Philip.
Philip, yes.
Yeah, he did. He had
That's
a
all that
little one.
matters. Doesn't matter.
Okay. We have to stop here and talk about a very important thing about this is the amount of artworks, the amount of artists, courtiers, and things that arrive with Philip, and the revolution in the arts, the production of images, because there is a new queen, not only because there's a woman in charge for the first time, so everything has to be changed, adapted, not changed completely, adapted. But then we have a guy too, and they have to share the power, and they have to be shown together, and this and that. And how did they actually meet was through a picture, because it was Mary of Hungary who sent a picture of Philip to Mary the First, saying, when she became queen, saying that Titian painted this a few years back, so he looks more manly now. And he also said it's a bit dated because of the trip from Asperg where he painted him, and because of the time, but it'll serve as a token, So actually, Mary meets Philip through a painting that it's believed that she kept. Mary asked her to send it back. I believe it was never sent back. There was at least a copy made that is still in the Royal Collection. She liked it. She did like it when she saw it. There's a version in the Prado Museum of by Titian, attributed to Titian's workshop. And yes, he's shown in black, like we were saying before. But the reason why the people would wear black in the Spanish court was a reason of luxury and magnificence, because black was the most difficult color to achieve. So it's a reason of magnificence. And, you look good in black. Come on, people. So he's wearing black. He has a hand on a table. He's looking pretty regal. But for another thing that Mary tells her cousin, because these two women are cousins, is make sure you look it from a bit afar, because this new art. So she's explaining how to view a Titian, because in England they probably had never seen a Titian before, right, Peter? That was probably the first Titian that ever arrived to England.
I don't know if it's the first, but it's probably one of the most important.
Unless Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon had Titians, but maybe that's for another episode.
But I mean, they must. I'm sure they knew of Titian's work.
Yes.
But like you said, Mary tells
the first
Mary,
documented Titian in the English court for sure, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's the first,
and it's a portrait of Philip. So this is how important it is. And then Titian is the father of royal portraiture in many ways and respects. And someone like Hans Ewers or that is influenced by someone like Titian. So let's not forget about a very famous visit of Antonismo.
Antonismo and Jacopo di Trezzo, they were both there. And, it's incredible. It's thanks to Philip. Well, thanks to Philip and Charles, those two famous artists were able to come to England. And then that's why we got all this beautiful imagery of Mary. The more portraits, the coins, the medals, all thanks to Philip and Charles.
Can you tell us a bit more about Jacopo da Trezzo? Because I think people know a lot. Antonismo, his famous portrait, hanging in the Prado Museum now in Alejandro Vergara's collection. We've talked a lot about the quality of Antonismo's portraiture, really, and the power of that image. But Jacopo da Trezzo is maybe less known as an artist because medalists are usually not as known. Can you tell us a bit more about his visit and what he did for Philip and Mary?
I mean, it's quite contested if he actually came to England or not. I'm in the camp that he did, only because the image. So Trezzo was in charge. Well, he was a medalist. He was Italian. He worked all over the place, and we believe he came to England at the same time with Philip, and it was all part of that whole entourage. And he designed the later coinage for Mary and Philip, and obviously all the medals, which we famously know, which is at the exhibit at the British Museum. So that that lovely joint coinage of her, Mary and Philip, da Trezzo made those, and designed them, and it's very much following on from Isabel and Fernando and the Spanish currency. I won't see it, but we'll put it on the thingamajig. But there's a little jeton. So that's from Flanders. or Lille. I think it's Flanders. Yes, it's from Flanders. It's again by de Trezzo. So this model, this pattern was used everywhere. It's a shame it wasn't used in Spain, but that's Spanish coinage for you. But all the English silver coinage, well, on the shillings, shillings and sixpence, you have this image. Yeah, so de Trezzo, he's very much, he understands what's the power dynamic here. Yes, you've got Philip and Mary both facing each other. Mary's slightly higher on the English coinage, but then looking at this Flanders jeton, they're both equal, or Philip's maybe slightly taller. So he knows who's really in charge in which area. So I think de Trezzo's only here for a few months. He's not here for very long. So it does annoy me when everyone always says, "Oh, the coins were done after Antonius More," but it does. Just because she's wearing the same outfit doesn't mean it's the same person who's done it, right? Who's to say they weren't both there at the time? I mean, we'll never know for certain because we don't have any evidence. Well, that's
what if they were both there at the same time?
Well, that's what I think. I think they were both there at the same time doing it with the Queen. Maybe Lavina Turlington was there. We don't, because you'd have to have some sort of female companion there. So yeah, who knows?
Lavina was probably correcting them. No, that's not the way she likes to be portrayed. Yeah. No, the chin is not quite right. No, sorry, Jacopo. And you said Flanders. Lavina was from Flanders. So there's so many, not only artists, but musicians that have names from Flanders in Mary's accounts. There's so many people that have names from the thing is, when the Spanish alliance is revived with Philip, what comes new is a bit more of an Italian influence, right? With the Titian, with Jacopo da Trezzo, but still the Flemish connection is strong. I think it even grows bigger because these very good Flemish artists, Antonius More was born in Utrecht, right?
Yes,
I think he was from Utrecht, but
around there, yeah.
But he became Philip II's. This is how we need to understand too that despite the religious difference, sometimes monarchs like Philip and Mary didn't have any problem to commission works and have people work for them that were Protestant. So they were more tolerant than people think.
Yeah, I mean, Hans Juif was a Protestant, or at least a Huguenot. Yes. He wasn't Catholic, let's put it that way. And Mary, he was Mary's one of favorite artists. So, she didn't care as long as she just played by the rules. She didn't care what you really thought.
Wow, you guys just blew my mind.
and just one other thing, while we're talking about the whole cosmopolitan nature of the court, their wedding day, there were representatives from all over Europe who came to witness this wedding. How many marriages can we say
in Winchester, right? They were married in Winchester.
Yeah.
The tapestries of the victories in Tunisia were displayed, sent by Charles V. Charles V was like, make sure that these guys have all the best stuff to display. They're part of the, it's my son, it's my heir. And that is the woman I was going to marry because we're Habsburgs. And this is how we do it. But other than that, and I think, and this is my theory, I've talked to Alejandro about this many times. I talked to Alejandro a lot about the Mary portrait, Peter, by the way. So just so you know. And I said, he took it to Yuste because not only he loved Philip and he knew that he was the King of England, but he had loved Mary for a long time. Yeah. That was his cousin, his dear cousin, that he had known as a little kid, that he had visited in England several times, he had been betrothed to her. And they just understood those marriage things differently than we do. I know it, but then when he marries Isabel of Portugal in 1526, and he has Philip the following year, and his life just is amazing because he has a male heir, Mary's life and Catherine's life goes down the drain because Henry VIII decides, what does he decide? In 1526 to 1527. So as Charles's life gets amazing, Mary, and I think he always felt responsible for what had happened to Mary, and ultimately to his aunt, Catherine. Let's remember that the reports were that she was poisoned. Catherine was poisoned. Let's remember that even the king said to Mary, be careful what you're doing because you're going to be next after Anne Boleyn. So Charles suffered a lot from Mary, and I think he was very happy that Mary and Philip had a shot at becoming the new Isabel and Fernando. Truly thought that. And that's why he asked him to go and marry Mary,
Yeah.
So he sent his best stuff. Yeah. So Charles V is also a big player in this parallel lives because he's the one who really tells his son what to do after his son is already a widow, because Philip was married before he was, even though he was younger, and they always say he was much younger than Mary, but he had been married. She had not. So in that sense, he was going to teach her some. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
You definitely gave her an experience that night, I'll tell you.
I had to say it. He was married 4 times, so that's another important thing. And the other reason why he's a very, very famous monarch in Spain, not only expanded, is we always talk about this. His life is very long. Whereas Mary dies in 1558, he goes on to live until 1598, right? So it's very different in this sense of parallel lives. Even though they were married, they coincided in a very short amount of time. And I think Mary had a much bigger impact in Philip's life than it's been told before. I think that book is going to be amazing. Peter and I are going to write it together, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. So we're talking about the parallel lives of Mary and Philip, and clearly painting and portraiture were part of the parallels.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely, they were both educated in the same sort of way. Obviously they're cousins. Well, first cousin once removed. So and they've all had that. I think they were both inspired by Isabel and Fernando in their own different ways. I don't know how Philip was taught about his great grandparents, but we all know Mary was, and how Catherine influenced her and told her about her mother, and she had that portrait of her, so she'd always. Well, probably when visited them, spoke to them, said, "What do I do, Grandmama?" I
imagine, Philip arriving to the English court. He would receive people in Whitehall Palace, where that big collection of portraiture was, where there was pictures of his dad. Pictures of his dad. That picture. Remember that picture we talked about that Mary Rose Tudor had in 1514. That is still in the Royal Collection, where Charles is depicted with a big chin. Yeah. And the Flemish ambassador said, "Oh, he was not very well portrayed in this picture." No, he was very faithfully portrayed in that picture. That's what the picture was. That picture was in Henry VIII's collection. So when Philip arrived, he would have seen that. He would have seen the pictures of Isabel and Fernando. He would have seen all those pictures that Henry VIII had, all the pictures that they had exchanged. So it wasn't that of an unfamiliar place to Philip, really, in the sense of the royal spheres, right? Because he had connections to England too, in that sense. And I think that's why also, think about this, he also descends from the House of Lancaster.
Yeah, I mean, they made a very big thing about that when they had their wedding procession into London. There was paintings all over and genealogies written down showing, actually, he's not Spanish at all, he's English. He's from Catherine of Lancaster. So, they made a very
and he
big
looked
thing about
like it. His look wasn't the typical, what you think nowadays of a Spaniard, right? He had blue eyes, he was blonde, so he had a beard.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loved him. Apparently, we always think everyone didn't like him, but everyone, when they saw him, they thought, "Oh, he's not actually that bad. He's quite good looking."
Yeah, especially when you have a beard to hide that giant chin.
Well, it's 16th century makeup, so like his dad started that trend. Remember, we talked that to hide that chin, he was advised to grow a beard, and then Titian paints him in that very famous portrait in Mulberg, a horseback that is in the Prado now, where he has the beard. And you're like, oh, okay, that's better. In the case of Philip's most famous portraits, listen to this. This is for the longest time until not very many years ago. It was thought that this, which is one of the most famous portraits of Philip in this book by a very famous historian, Felipe II y su tiempo is the name of the book. The very famous historian is Manuel Fernández Álvarez from Spain. This picture that everybody used in every biography of Philip almost, we know now it was painted by a woman, Sofonisba Anguissola, who was the woman that Philip recruited after Mary's death to serve, really, his third wife, Elizabeth of Valois. Why? Because in England, Mary had been taught to paint by Susanna Horenboot and then had taken on Lavina Turnlake, and Lavina was already a court painter, was more than Sofonisba Anguissola ever became. We know about Sofonisba Anguissola because she was in the Queen's household. We would know more about Susanna Horenboot if the privy purse expenses of Catherine of Aragon would survive or something like that. So these are connections between, and it's Philip. Philip is the connection because this happens after Mary dies. He goes back to Spain. He marries a French bride. And instead of having a Flemish woman to teach her, like Susanna had done for Mary, because in the English court that was more prominent, because his wife is French, his new wife in a Valois, he hires an Italian. And also because that's his territory. He's a king of a very big empire. So he's got a lot of territories in Italy still, Philip became the most powerful man in Europe at the time that the Tudor historiography tends to magnify the role of Elizabeth I of England. I'm sorry. She wasn't that powerful. Philip II of Spain was way more powerful than everybody's going to bring up the Spanish Armada, I know, in the comments.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? That's the thing. No one expected it to not work. Real.
Yes. Well, I mean, Crybaby's story wasn't around, and then Catherine almost drowned also, and there was so many. I think there was a lot of presidents they left from the same spot that Catherine of Aragon left from in 1501, and she almost drowned, and that's why she ends up in Laredo, stays for a month. This will be in the course, guys. I'll tell you more about it. But there's evidence of what happens in Laredo, and it's not good.
No.
Ooh, okay. Well, we're getting toward the end of this episode, and I want to check in with Dr. Peter Stiffell again and see if what we've covered today. Well, you did some research to prep for this interview today, looking into Philip II. Obviously, you know about Mary, but is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we covered today?
I think we've done. I mean, we know the story of Philip. Really, I don't think it was as bad as everyone thinks he was. I mean, could he have treated Mary better? Yes, but I mean, he did respect her. It was a marriage of respect. I mean, I still think he's a bit of an idiot, but it was nice. Actually,
you're finding this podcast saying that, Peter. You should hear us talk about all of that.
Yes.
I mean, he could have been a bit more kind to her, I think. But then again, it was just it's courtly love. It's courtly etiquette, isn't it? He was from a different. The Spanish court was very different from the English.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he tried to adapt. I think if he'd had more time, if they both had more time, we may have seen a bit more of that relationship come through.
Yeah, he didn't try to chop her head off, for example. No, that was nice.
I don't think he'd ever gone away with that.
I don't think so either.
But I mean, I think I said it before we recorded. The trouble with this relationship is we don't have the private correspondence because Philip was so paranoid and secretive. We don't know what he and Mary secretly wrote to each other. We have one surviving draft letter from Mary to Philip, and it's her completely playing him, really, because she's trying to get him to come back. So she starts saying, "Oh, I miss you, I need you." Well, no, you need him because you need a child. That's why you really need him. You don't need him for anything else because you can't actually do anything else. And all of the stuff that he was trying to send back to Spain, it sunk in the channel. So that's, like I said, it's difficult to really analyze their relationship properly because we don't have a lot to go on. So we don't know the true story behind what they really felt about each other, or the little things like that, really.
I think
but they did like dancing.
The women use that strategy in correspondence. Her mother uses that same strategy with her father. She's always begging. She's always, I'm in rags. I think they're a bit dramatic, but the men too. I think it's just a way to plead. It's a plead, really. Yeah. It's just a way to show how grave things are. It's not. It's a language they just learned. Like you said, court language of love was not just court language of love in the parties, was court language of love in the distressful moments and the stressful moments, right? So I think it's very difficult to, make someone come back that's not coming back, and probably caught because he is fighting hard too. So he's having a lot of trouble. So like his father Charles, they both had a very troubled reign, especially Philip at the beginning, because he's a young king. He also needs to get established. Another thing that is very important in the Spanish monarchy, and I think Tudor historians sometimes don't understand, is that in the Iberian Peninsula, in the kingdoms demand the presence of the monarch. They demand it, otherwise they become insurrect. That's why the Catholic monarchs have a literary court. During the course, you'll find out more about that. But you know what I mean. That's why they're traveling on it. That and for health reasons, and it's very hot here in the summer or whatever. But one of the main reasons is to in the Spanish monarchy, the king's justice is very important. So he has to go around and see the Cortes, which is the let's say the parliaments, right? The parliaments in its place, and that he's pulled from many different places, right? So it's difficult for him. And this is true. I'm going to say that I think Philip was, and the Marys, we're going to see a shift, and we're going to be blown away when we find out the real repercussions of their relationship, and how much we've tainted the real story, really, with our, with centuries of essentially religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants. That's how I view it.
Fascinating episode today, guys. I just keep going back to this whole letter thing because that blew my mind. I had no idea that Philip destroyed these letters.
No, it's crazy, and another thing is, like, Mary writes these letters, but it works because she tells it, because I think it's to do with some marriage or something. So Philip wants Elizabeth to marry, I think it's the Duke of Savoy, and Mary doesn't want it to happen, really, but she says, well, we can't really make a decision unless you come back to England. So then he has to come back to England. Oh, yeah, we're not doing it. It's like, oh, right.
That's quite the way to get what you want, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine Elizabeth I would have finished as Duchess of Savoy? That blew my mind.
I have to just say, just to totally sidetrack a little bit, I just finished watching The Serpent Queen. Have either of you watched The Serpent Queen?
I've seen the first series.
Okay, I mean,
is that about Catherine de Medici?
Yes, yeah. And in the last few episodes, and I hope this isn't the spoiler alert for anybody, it's history, and I know this is not fully based on history. But I found it intriguing that Philip II came over with his father, Charles V, and they're trying to work out some type of marriage agreement, but he was there for a wedding or a funeral. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, Philip II is portrayed as this lunatic. He is just this crazy guy who loves to inflict pain on other people and stuff. And in an episode, he has this fire poker, right? and from a fireplace, and he's heating it up over coals. Okay, so right away in my mind, I'm thinking Edward II, right? I was like, oh my gosh, what is this crazy Philip II gonna do? He takes his fire poker that's all hot, and he's like in like the stables or something, and he's getting ready to go do something with this poker with a horse. And this horse is standing there, and as he gets closer, the horse kicks back and kicks Philip across the room, and then makes him almost like an invalid, honestly. It was like the strangest story, and that's how he ended up marrying the eldest. Well, the one that was unmarried, was it Elizabeth of Valois? That's how he ended up marrying her, because they needed to have some pact, and they wanted her to take care of him. It's the
Right.
No, I've never seen that show, but I'm so glad I've never seen that show.
It was so weird. The whole thing was weird. I'm like,
Yeah.
why did you have to make this storyline?
No, I don't think that happened.
And why is it, sorry to say, so typical to use a Spanish characters to do that? Or, and then one of my favorites is the Tudors when they go to the Portuguese court and it's in the darkness. The Portuguese court is in the darkness.
Yeah.
And everybody just is like looking weird and suspicious, and just like, and you're like, okay. Then they go back to the Tudor court and everybody's just like so good looking. And you're like, meh, I don't know about that, So Mary is described as being extremely beautiful many times in her youth. And then, some ambassador comes and says, oh, she's old because she's older than Philip and this and that. And then, oh, she's old and ugly and this Bloody Mary, right? So we need to drink more Bloody Marys and move on from that silly idea that Mary, first of all, if she was ugly or not, who cares? Have you seen Charles V? Move from that idea and really focus on learning about whatever we can. There's a lot of sources in Simancas, Peter, to study the relationship. So I want to encourage collaboration between people in Spain and England. And also, we need to look again, like Peter did in his PhD about Mary's imagery, but now we need to connect it to her patronage, her relationship, not only to her mother, but to her husband and to her courtiers, because you just blew my mind. The Duke of Savoy, a marriage between, just doing this episode of Parallel Lives, I'm thinking now of 25 different things I want to do with this idea of Duke of Savoy and Lady Elizabeth. This kind of is like, oh, this is very interesting. So again, this is why Parallel Lives is such a great format too, I think. It makes you think differently, doesn't it, Peter? Even though you're a married specialist, you had to put yourself in Philip's shoes for a little second there, didn't you?
Yeah, no, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice doing this married couple thing. It's quite interesting.
Anyone who's been married knows it takes work. So, especially when you're both monarchs. Must have been so hard. What are we today? Kings of England or kings of Spain?
Yeah, well, exactly.
What is this decision about? Is it about Spain, England? Well, England takes precedent. No, Spain does. No, because once Mary is Queen of Spain, she also is, she's also Queen of Spain. So she has to think of the Spanish interests too, It becomes very complex. That's what I'm saying. So it's a very complex relationship that we'll have to unravel a bit more in the future, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I'm excited too. Well, Dr. Peter Stiffell, thank you so much for joining Dr. Emma and me for this episode today on Philip II and Mary I. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been so much fun. No problem. It's been really, really good.
Emma.
Thank you guys. Like I said, we were only going to bring the best. So thank you so much, Peter, for coming today.
Not a problem, man.
I was just going to say, Emma, thank you for coming up with the topic today. It was a good one.
Yes.
All right.
Count on me for crazy ideas.
I love it. We will see you all next Thursday.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks for listening to Tudors, Dynasty, and Beyond. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss a new release. And if you loved it, leave a quick review. It helps more history lovers find the show. Want to support the podcast and get bonus content? Head to patreon.com/tutorsdynasty. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. Join the conversation with Rebecca on social media at Tutors Dynasty. Until next time.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.